Okay, got it. Sorry about that. It was so funny. Right as you were getting off, I was like, "Oh, I can assign you, and you don't have to come back. Like you don't have to leave and come back in." But you'd already left, so apologies for that. Okay, so today we are talking about one of my favorite topics, and it's probably one of the topics um, that. Sorry. Okay, it's the one of the topics that really tripped me up when I first got into this world, that I could not grasp the concept of being the person or deciding to be the person, right? So to be the person that makes X amount of money, to be the person like, and it's not about being, I mean, it is about being the person, but it's about deciding. And I want everybody to think about a time when they really were like, it might be okay, enough is enough. That's never going to happen again. Because I know that we've all been there. Or it could just be, I want this, so I'm making it happen. And the reason I say this is because I've been thinking a lot about this because I am extremely powerful. Like, not just only like, I mean, all people are extremely powerful. It's just a matter of if they choose to embody it and be in their power, right? But when I want something, I make it happen. And it's very clear. I mean, look at the life I live, right? Like nobody where I grew up has even really been outside of the US, maybe to like a resort in Mexico. Like look at the life that I lived. I didn't grow up with money. Like I chose that this life was happening and there was no other option. And I chose and I decided and I made it work. So when things in my business aren't working, which is so funny, this concept of it's not working, because how could I ever say that when I just like don't show up? But this concept of like it's not working. And I know because a lot of people will be like, I'm doing XYZ and it's not working. And it's like, okay, but what would be different if you decided that it was working? Sometimes our brain just gets so fixed on the idea and focused on like the negative. And this is a little more traditional like manifestation, like where your attention goes your energy flows, right? Like, so if you're focused on it's not working, that's what you're going to get more of. And I do believe in that, and we do have some scientific studies on that, of like how our brain prioritizes what information that we access and hold on to, right? And so it's really important that we're noticing, well, if I'm always focusing on it's not working, then that's what we're going to get. If I'm always focusing on people are judging me or people are mean to me or whatever the story is, that's what we're going to get, because it's priming the brain to look for that situation. Our brains are super, super, super intelligent. They are wired to look for the information that we believe true. It's like kind of like a trying to figure out, is this really true? It's always seeking that out. And that's why doing like mindset work is important. I mean, you guys will hear me talk about mindset work isn't a big thing, and it is and it isn't. It's one part of the puzzle, because really, if you're just working with the belief and not the sensation, you're not really rewiring the full neural network. But we do want to rewire the sensation, and that automatically leads to changes in beliefs, because our brain will automatically look for reasons that it's true to prove itself right. Okay. So I want to just talk about for a minute about like deciding, this concept of like I'm deciding. So think about a time when you were like, for me, the thing, I mean, yeah, I've got both. I've got one that's like, okay, yeah, oh, good. I'm glad. I'm so glad. This is going to be really powerful, I think. And everybody deals with this. Every single human deals with this. And the truth is that the magic happens when we still choose and decide that we are being that person, even when the evidence shows it's not working, right? And of course, like there's a balance to that. Like, of course, I'm not going to be like, oh, you've been selling the same thing for a year and it's not working. We'll keep just being the person. That's not what I'm saying. There's a duality there of like having discernment, having the understanding of, okay, when it's actually not working, right? But I would say, I don't know. I go back and forth about how I feel about this. And maybe this is just for me, I believe that we create our own reality. I believe that we're creating it all the time. And so maybe it's a little more subjective to people that believe that. But like, I see people like one of my past mentors has a multiple seven-figure business. She didn't have a website. She did everything like on Facebook. She didn't have an email list. I mean, she had an email list, but she didn't send out like marketing emails. And she didn't have a team for the longest time. And she was making multiple seven figures. And she also didn't have like, she doesn't teach marketing or do marketing like everybody else. But you could feel her energy, right? Like her conviction with what she's doing, and that was the difference, right? And that's not to say that some people are better naturally at others, right? Like So she's probably really good at writing content. I took a content class with her and literally hated it. It was like, I don't understand what you're saying. I just sound like you. This doesn't, it didn't work for me, but it works for her, right? It works for her. And so this idea that it's not working, or it has to be strategy versus the energy. Like, I think it's just different for different people. But I think when you have your energy, my belief is that when you have your energy fully decided, on board with what you want, you prime your brain and body to experience it, and you allow yourself to experience it, and you will find a way to make it happen. The deeper truth here is that we are all so freaking powerful that we can have whatever we desire. It's just, the truth is that a part of us doesn't feel safe to have it, or desire to have it, or worthy to have it, whatever our story is, right? But I want you to really start thinking that, like, I can have whatever I want. And that's not to like beat yourself up and be like, oh, well, I don't have what I want, it must be a problem with me. It's not, that's not the point. The point is just to understand that you're really powerful, and that given the right work, that you can pull that information out and make the best of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if all that makes sense. But yeah, so I want you to think about like the thought. Okay, so first, like, think about, write down, the time that you were like, I decided this was happening, and it did. Like I said, my example I think is really good. I have a lot of examples of like, another thing with me is relationships. I tend to be, and not just romantic, even with like friendships, I let them go on too long. And romantic, obviously this happens more romantically, but it like, I know that there's a disconnect. I know that it's not serving me, and I let it happen too long, and then it gets to a point where I'm done, and then it's like done. Like, I won't ever go back, right? And I've done this with friends too. I know that that's a part of who I am, but that's also a deciding. I get to a point where I'm like, I'm drawing a line in the sand. I'm done with this. No more, right? And then I just am that person. Or the other, thing is, like I said, my lifestyle. I decided this is going to happen. I have never once like even thought about like getting a job or look for a job or anything like that. Like, this is happening, and it just is, and there's no other way. Now, granted, that doesn't say that I don't have like stress, over it, but the point is that I decided this was happening. So it's really important for us to be like, okay, if I decide this is happening, what if that version of me who decides it's going to happen and then makes it happen? And of course, I don't mean make it happen like this very masculine push. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about, well, guys, okay, here's the thing about like the masculine part where you're pushing. If that works for you and you desire that, go for it. It used to work for me. It doesn't work for me anymore, but I still have little spurts where I'm like, oh, I could do this for a lunch, like I can still have masculine side, but for me, it's the duality. For me, it's the balance. But I don't mean it like that. I mean, I know that this is going to happen. And the truth is that I know that I can make consistent 10, 20K months showing up 1 to 2 hours a day. I know that. It's just a matter of me showing up. And for me, it's a big story about like what I have to hold if that happens, right? That's why moving digital products is so like such a game changer for me, because I don't have to hold as much, right? Instead of going from like a lot of one-to-one clients to, okay, I'm just going to package this up and do it digitally. Point being is that I made it happen. But what if this version of you that's like, I'm deciding that right? So I'm the person that sells every day. I'm the person that shows up every day. I'm the person that makes X amount of money each month, right? What if that version of you is actually who you are, who you truly are? If our desires are intelligent, which I believe they are, then the person that already has what they desire is who you truly are, right? And so if you think about that, when we don't do the things, like for me, I'm in this big thing of like not showing up and marketing myself. But for me, that's me betraying my true version of myself, because a true version of myself actually gets up and works 1 to 2 hours a day, and that's it, right? And I know what my blogs are. I know, like, I'm working through all of that, because every time I show up and I sell, I make sales and people buy. So I'm simultaneously afraid of people not buying and then too many people buying. I get to simultaneously deal with that because I'm also human. I'm also navigating this with you guys. But the truth is that if my desires are intelligent and I can choose and decide that it's happening and decide to be the person who does the things, then I'm betraying myself by not being that person. And that's again not to be harsh, but to just reframe it of like, oh, what if that's really who I am? And that this version of me is actually an outdated version of me that my brain and body are just clenching onto because it's so afraid to upgrade. Right? And most people are way more afraid of making money, way more afraid of having clients, way more afraid of their power than they are of not having, especially for people that grew up not having, right? Like they grew up like, not having a lot of money or not having things go their way. They get really scared of things going their way because it feels really unnatural for them. So, what if this version of you that everything is easy for and you just know what to do and say and you show up and you do the things and it works? What if that's actually who you are? Can you choose to be this upgraded version now because it's who you are, not some outdated story of who you are before the world, like, or after, I guess, the world told you who you should be? Because all of us that are showing up in ways that aren't in alignment with who we are truly and like what we have, like all of us that do that is, what am I trying to say? Like I'm trying to think about how I want to articulate this. Like, well, it's okay. I'll go back to it. But the point is that we can decide. We can decide. So I want you to think about it for a second. So first, get really clear on the time that you decided, and then figure out why it worked. Because there's also a lot of times that we've decided things that it didn't work, right? So we want to get really clear on this. So, for example, like I am the worst. I will quit coffee and start coffee, and quit coffee and start coffee. And I know why. It has to do with like when I was dealing with like autoimmune stuff, and I was just so tired. And then when you drink it, you get addicted to it. It's such an addiction. So I'm clear on why it wasn't working for me. So what's the difference between that and then me making something else happen? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because we want to get really clear on how we decide, how we can do this, so we can start doing it today, that we get to be this authentic version of ourselves today. And just let me know when you have that, because I want to give you space and time, because I know that's a lot. So it's like, okay, sorry. Why, like what, like I guess it's like kind of saying like what makes you tick, right? Like, okay, when I do this and I draw a line in the sand, I follow through. I trust myself to do it. Get really clear on what that is for you. So for me, like making this life, I think for me, a big thing is like I've always done things my way and I can't fathom not doing it. And so there's a little bit, which I'm working on. I'm working on creating a life I desire from overflow and abundance versus I'm going to show you. But that's been the way it's worked for me in the past, is like, well, you don't think I can do this? I'll show you. And that's not the best energy to bring in, but it's okay because it works for me, right? Like I get to let that go. It worked for me as much as it did. But now I'm clear on that was the motivating factor, right? Somebody tells me I can't do something, I will literally bend over backwards to make sure that I can do it. I think I had a bit of faith, no frets, sort of let it go. Okay. What about something that you've decided it was going to happen and made it happen? I feel like your online business is probably a really good example of that, right? Like it's probably similar to mine. Like, I'm going to make this happen. This is happening. You know what it feels like to have conviction in your, like, I'm going to make this happen, right? So just make sure that you know why you have that conviction. Like, what's the motivating factor for you? It helps when we understand why we do the things we do. Once we start to realize that, it's literally like me handing you a tool, like a magic toolbox of all these tools that you can use to your advantage, because you're like, oh, I really respond really well to this, or I do things that I say I'm going to do when it's for this, or when I do it this way. When you start to understand the way that you tick, you can really start to like play with it and be like, oh, I can use this to my advantage, right? So get really clear on like what do you, and maybe it's just, well, I've always just been that way. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, right? Get really clear on what it is for you. Just let me know like when you have that, or if you're like stuck on it. But if you're like kind of clear on like, okay, when I say this is happening and I declare it, it's happening. I believe that if you really want it, you just do it. No excuses, no chatter. I love that. I love that. And obviously it's worked for you, right? Like I'm making this happen. I'm kind of like the girl who always complains she wants to lose weight but doesn't do anything. Yeah. What drives me is I really want to do it. Would you just do it? Exactly. And to also notice that if you're not doing it, it's because something you either have a fear or you don't actually want it, right? Like that's also another thing is like, well, if I actually say I'm going to do something and I don't do it, then it's because, or the other thing is I do it, but it isn't working. It's so, okay. So let's say it like this, like if you have all this information in your brain, which we do, we process millions of bits of data per second, we have access to that information. So if you've ever taken a marketing class, like I'm taking a lot of marketing classes. I used to do marketing. I used to do copywriting. I hate it. I don't enjoy it at all, which is probably a big part of my story, right? I should probably work on that story that I hate it. But I know how to market. I could teach somebody else how to market, but for some odd reason, I have a story that I don't know how to market myself, right? So the truth is that I could tap into all that information and do all these things, but I don't. So I know that there is something holding me back. And when I choose to shine a light on that and figure out what that is, I'll allow myself to use that knowledge of marketing to actually market myself, right? Like this is not probably not true for you, but other people that I hear a lot say, oh, well, I've done all these courses and I don't finish any of them or they don't work. It's like that. It's like if you have the strategy and the strategy isn't working, but you're taking action. Now, guys, if you're not taking action, that's a different issue. But if you're actually taking action, it's not working, there's still a fear there. You either don't actually want it or there's a fear or both, right? Again, like I'll probably do a training over this of like wanting what you actually want. I would say majority of people that come into my world, especially those that are not taking action. So this doesn't really apply to you specifically, but like that are not taking action, it's because they don't want what they think they want. Good example is me. That's why I'm changing my business model. I thought I wanted to only work to one-on-one, like high level one-to-one. That's all I would do for years. Wouldn't even do like the only reason I even did a group or a membership is because people asked me to do it because they were like, we can't afford your prices. Like, can you do something like this? And I did it because people asked me and I was like, I love this. I only want to do groups. And then I was like, wait a minute, I actually just want to do digital products because I don't want to be on calls all day. So I would have told you for 2 or 3 years, like, I want this, I want this, I want this. But really and truly, I didn't because I didn't want to hold it. I didn't want to hold that many clients. I just wanted the money, right? And I mean, the truth is, I love my work. Like, I wanted to get my work out, but the business model was out of alignment for what I actually desire. My highest desire is freedom, right? So like if I think that money is going to create a problem with my freedom, I will not show up. So that's my truth, right? Like making sure that you are really clear on what you want and why. So now I want you, that's the next step is like, what is it that you want? Because we're going to write down, I am the person that, and we're going to write down as many as we can. So make sure you have a pen and paper because we're going to tap on this. I am the person that shows up and sells. I am the person that makes X amount of money. I am the person that keeps my promise to myself. I'm the person that sells every day. Like start listing out like, okay, sorry, I got ahead of myself. The first one is what do you actually want? Let's do that one first. So what do I actually want? And I know for you, it's probably a specific amount of money. I want X amount of money. And also for you, I know that freedom is a big thing. So it's probably X amount of money working X amount of hours. But if that feels too edgy and too big, like you don't want to put the hours thing on it, that's fine. Like don't like overwhelm your nervous system because sometimes it's like, well, okay, money in the house. Exactly. Perfect. So guys, the reason I'm saying this is like sometimes if you feel far away from your money goal or if your money goal is like really like up and down, it can be really hard on your nervous system to be like I'm claiming X amount of money and then to tack it on I want it in this amount of time or I want it, you know, this way. It can be hard on your nervous system. So check in with your body, make sure that what you're saying is like feels good. Like I want X amount of money. That feels good, that feels aligned. Don't like put yourself in, you know, like overwhelm. Okay. And then I want you to ask yourself, who would you be if everything was working? So you already had the money, you already had the house. Who would you be? And so this is going to like write down. So I know this is a little bit weird because I'm being ambiguous for a reason. So just write down what you think I would be, right? Or not I would be, I am. Let's do it that way. I am the person that. So it could be I am the person that does these things to get there, to get the money to get the house, or I already have the money in the house and I'm this person. Could be either one. Write down what feels right for you. And let me know if you need help. I feel like that's a little confusing. So I am the person that. Like I've decided that I'm having what I want, and now I'm the person that. Because we want to get really clear on the things that we're not doing, right? Like, want to get clear on that. It's so funny when the light shines in, it makes it look like I have like, I don't know. I mean, I do have a lot of blonde up here because I'm in the ocean a lot, but it looks like I don't have hair right here sometimes and it shows up really weird on the screen. Yeah, it's funny. And you don't have to share it in the chat. You can if you want, but because I don't want you to have to type out stuff that, is too much for you. But just let me know when you have it. And we want at least like four things, right? So mine might be like, I'm the person that gets up at this time and works from this time to this time. Like I really struggle. Like the irony for me is that I so deeply long for what's the word I'm looking for? Like to be on a schedule, right? To like have what am I trying to say? Like I don't know the word that I'm trying to say. Um, sorry guys, I didn't sleep well last night, so I'm a little bit tired today. So bear with me. My brain's kind of um but I'm also scared to death of it because I had a lot of chaos in my life growing up. So being on a schedule and doing things like that, like, okay, I'm going to do this at 8 o'clock. All right, cool. It feels very like overwhelming in my nervous system because it doesn't feel safe to me because my brain's like, that's not normal, right? Like, and I also have a story about being boring, right? Like I love to travel. I'm very adventurous. So like getting up at the same time every day and do the same thing every day is very scary for me, even though the truth is that if I just got up and did this from 8 to 10 every day, then I'd have the rest of my day to just be, adventure and be wild, right? Like, and that's my own stuff to work through. But I just want to show you like that would be mine. Like, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to sit down. I'm going to work from this time to this time. I'm only going to work that amount. I'm going to post every day. I'm going to sell every day, right? But for you, that might look different and I'm going to show you something. Okay, cool. And I'm going to show you something at the end, which is going to be kind of cool because I want to see how your list changes, right? So, how do I want to articulate this? Because I don't want to give too much away. Let me look at something really quick. Okay, so I kind of feel bad because I was like, oh, you don't have to put it in the chat, but it might be good to put it in the chat so I can help you tap on it because we want to tap on these things like I am this person, right? Like I am the person that. And then you can like I'm the person that and just like bullet point, right? Like or whatever. And the person that shows up or does this or markets differently or whatever. Because I think we should do some tapping around this. Like I think we forget, like I know I do tapping with you guys to do like installation, but I forget sometimes how powerful it is to tap in an identity. You can do that. Tap in the belief and the feelings and the sensations that I'm already this person. I already do these things. I am already the person that has what they want. I'm already the person that has decided that it's happening. This is what we mean by deciding is like, it's happening, so it's happening. And as long as I keep showing up and doing like like the work. And what I mean by the work is like taking aligned action, which is like the action that you get from this work, because this work doesn't replace action, right? But doing both, right? Showing up to do both in a way that works for you. Like, don't overwhelm yourself with the work, but So I'm hearing a lot about more space and more time. See if this word resonates with you. This is a word that's been coming up a lot for me and like my clients lately is like capacity, like having the capacity. Like if you're really tired from working all the time, if you're really tired from working all the time, you don't have the capacity to connect with your friends, right? So like I think that's a really big thing is like having capacity, but see if that resonates with you. If it doesn't, we won't say it. Um, okay. So here's the thing. This is really interesting, and I think this is a really good point. So there's two ways to do this. Okay. So I'm going to read this out loud just so everybody has like context. I have more time to take care of myself. I'm filled with joy and gratitude. I have more joy and time to connect with others, friends, and community. Reach out and encourage moms and others doing what I am doing. I love that. That's so beautiful. Yes, and time to nurture myself. I feel like I don't have time to read books, etc. Okay. All right, amazing. There's two ways to do this. So I want you guys to really think about this. So I just read this, and immediately the coach in me was like, okay, but what's the action that would be different? Is there anything that comes up in your business, right? And if nothing comes up, that's fine. And I knew for you, it probably wouldn't because I've worked with you long enough now to know that this is usually what comes up. Like you're taking the action. Now you want to prioritize like the things that you want from what you have, right? So like the more emotional things, which is fine. But see if anything comes up for your business. If it doesn't, just be like, no, I'm doing all the things in my business. For those of you, a lot of you that do this exercise will have things come forward. Okay, I'll have, like for me, again, I'll have what I want when I show up and sell my stuff consistently, right? So there is like an aligned action there. So take your time, but let me know if you have it or if you want to share about if there's anything in your business that you would be doing different. And it might be, you know, the other offer that you were talking about, like who knows? But there's a reason why these things pop up when they do, right? Like, oh, for a long time, I never saw this offer. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I could offer this. It's because it's coming at a time where you can use it and it can get you what you want. And I know that for you, it's a time thing. You're like, okay, well, when I'm over the summer or whatever. But just notice if anything comes up for your business, I would be doing this. Okay, amazing. So this is also really interesting. Okay, so this, I'm so glad you brought this up. So she was like, I would assume at this point I would be getting sales every day. So sorry about that. So here's the thing about that. And you have to figure out what feels right for you. I know that like Abigail has this thing that's like $0 sales days, which I think is amazing. But remember that seven-figure business mentor I was telling you about at the beginning? She made at this point, I don't think she was multiple seven figures at it. She was just like seven figures. So she was making 100K months every month without fail. And she was like, I have days that people don't buy. She's like, sometimes I have several days where people don't buy, but I still make the money. Like, am I allowing that story that, oh, well, if I don't have sales every day, dictate that I'm doing it wrong? Like if I still hit the number, does it really matter? And so that's something to just think about and catch because it might be something like, everybody's so different. Everybody's business model is different. Like, it's okay that if you don't make sales every day. Like, I know that Abigail's really normalized that, but like, what if you're still making the amount of money you want and you're not making sales every day? You know, you're still taking your action, you're showing up, you're doing all the things, and you still make the money. So just watch that story that you have to make sales every day. And maybe you do. Maybe you're like, no, the person, me, that's making this amount of money does make sales every day. And that's okay too, right? Assume I meant when I'm feeling all the feelings listed above. Yeah, I meant, so like you're saying, let me make sure I'm understanding this. You're saying like when you have the money, right? Like when you have like X amount of money in the house, that you at that point in your business would be like having sales every day. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay. And when I have the house, I'm sales every day. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, and again, that may be your truth, but 100K months and not having sales every day is also normal, right? Yeah, like it's also normal. So just watch our stories because I'm the same. I make story like our brains literally we have the data on this. I'll see if I can find it. But like our brain, if there's a gap in information, will fill in that information. And that's why we always will come up with stories that aren't actually true. Like again, going back to like the like the example of like, okay, you having a conversation with somebody and then having a different experience of that conversation. Because if some sort of detail wasn't given, you will fill in the detail. And not only will you fill it in, but you'll fill it in based on how you're feeling in that conversation. That's how two people can leave and have a very different experience with the same conversation, right? So just it's important to watch our stories for that reason because we don't want us to be like, oh, well, if I don't have sales every day, I can't make 5K months or even 100K months, right? It's just not true. But maybe for you, that's a part of the identity of like, no, I want to make sales every day. And if it is, that's fine. But I think there's magic in embracing that your own way of doing business, right? Like I don't do business like anybody else I know. And I'm just now to a point where I'm stepping into my power enough to be okay with it, enough to be like, I don't have to do business the way other. I know that my work works. I know that my clients get amazing results, and that's enough. I don't have to bend over backwards and have this really engaged Facebook group and la 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 la. Like I just want to do it my way, and it makes sense. I've been that way since I was a child. You will ask my mom, and she will tell you I was like always did things my way. And so it makes sense that I was going to be like that as an adult. So just making sure that you're also like for me again building a life that created freedom and then having a bunch of client calls didn't land well for me, right? So being really clear on that. Yeah, revealing, right? It's like, oh, and when I don't make sales every day and I let it get me down, then I show up differently, right? So just watch that. Also, I'm curious how the new videos have been going. I don't know if you can share or want to share, but I'm curious about that. And just playing around. You can always go back to the older ones, right? Okay. I'm just scrolling up and I want to read through this one more time. Okay. So it sounds like you feel like you're doing everything in the business, but you want these other things. Okay. Yeah, of course. Come on. Come on, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
You don't
funny.
mind sharing and being on the recording. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. Really quick, because the Instagram algorithm changed in April, they Facebook and Instagram shut down for a few hours internationally. And then after that, it's never been quite the same. And so I went into a deep dive on my Google Analytics to see what's changed, why the numbers are different. The immediate change was my sales went down. And that month I was just like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Of course, I really thought it was all me.
Right.
And then you start talking to people in different groups, and some people are having the same. Anyways, but long story short, um, yeah, Google Analytics was revealing. So my views decreased in a huge way from 70 to 150 views on my sales page a day to 30 to 50 a day, like barely.
Wow.
And then what else? Oh, this whole new thing of if you repost someone else's content, they're going to try and credit the original creator, not the new person. And so no big deal. Why would that affect me? Well, I looked at, okay, how can I explain this? Because I'm trying to do Facebook ads right now, and I don't, the commitment of posting every day is huge. So I repost old stuff all the time. And it worked for me before. I could get hundreds and hundreds of comments on a post that I had posted 2 months ago that got hundreds of comments. Well, now I'd get 20 and I didn't know what was going on. So I thought, then I finally realized literally about 6 days ago, oh, maybe Instagram sees that as me reposting my stuff. So now I've reposted like 3 or 4 videos that are new, and sure enough, I got 100 comments. So it's just this learning curve, right? It's up and down learning curve. And anyways, who knows? We'll see where this goes, but I want to have an open mind and not live in negativity, fret, or fear, though it's
Right.
kind
Well,
of
this
hard to
is,
sometimes wonder.
no,
So in a way,
sorry.
I
Go
feel
ahead.
like I'm starting from scratch again. What
Oh
were you
my
gonna
gosh,
say?
this is amazing. This is exactly what I mean. Like, it's not personal. When things aren't working, are you sure they're not working? Or is it like, oh, I just need to adjust and reevaluate? Like, it's not anything to do with me. But a lot of us take it so personally. And then we're like spiraling. And then because we're spiraling, we can't see what's clearly in front of us. Like, oh, well, I'll just keep these old videos and just make a new post every time. Right. Like, okay. And I
Mhm.
feel like it's not just you. Probably other people are dealing with that too. And so
Oh,
I feel like
sure.
that might change, because they'll catch it. They'll probably be like, it's probably something that catches the reshare, like you go down and you hit like share. It's probably catching that and like, oh, you're sharing something, right? But eventually Instagram will probably catch that because I feel like people reshare their stuff. But the point is that if she had been spiraling and like, I'm doing it wrong, something's wrong with me, nobody's going to buy this, isn't
Mhm.
working, she might not even came to the conclusion of, because we've been doing a lot of work on like, it's working, it's working, it's working, it's not you, don't take it personally, and like now it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, and actually now it's working again. Like
Yeah.
the beliefs that we hold are powerful in that way, right? Of
Mhm.
like, oh, if I'm doing it wrong and I keep thinking I'm doing it wrong, I'm going to be focused on that and continue to do it wrong. And
Totally. Oh yeah, it's crazy.
yeah.
I don't know what else
Okay.
to call it, but then it's
Yeah.
okay, right? Then I can take a pause and say, okay, it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
And I can just
Right.
keep kind of persevering. It can be
Yeah.
such a slog though, posting every day on Instagram. Oh my goodness. It was so nice to just repost my old successful videos. So now I'm having, again, that takes more time and again, that thought and energy when really what I'm trying to do is work with my business coach and I'm trying to record like the free class, almost like a freebie to
Hmm.
increase ads, etc. So I do feel like the days aren't long enough. And then I cringe when I say that because it's a negative statement.
No, okay. So here, thank you for bringing this to my attention. This is really important. So it's not bad to say a negative statement because we have to articulate what the problem is and how we're feeling. It's only
True.
bad when we just keep harping on it, right? Like this is where the positive toxicity comes in of like, everything's good, I'm high vibe, and it's
Right.
like, no, you're just painting that on because you're not expressing how you really feel. It's express how
Right.
you feel, express that you're upset or frustrated or whatever, and then from there, ironically, you can actually authentically be high vibe because you got it out. You're like, okay, right? So
Right.
don't ever be afraid of saying how you feel. I am not going to sit here and be like, I'm happy. No, no, no. Like, tell me
Yeah.
why you're unhappy, get it out. Let's connect in that version of you that feels really unhappy, love on that version, and then come back and be like, okay, now what's different, right? That's why I always have you guys check back in with numbers or check back in with the things I have you
Mhm.
do, because what you perceive or what you even know, like, okay, who would I be if this happened? We're going to do this again at the end, and you'll probably have more different information because your perception of, oh, and there's this and there's this, I didn't think about this, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's important to do stuff like that. And yeah, so don't ever be afraid to say how you're feeling, but if you really are worried about it, then tap as you do it, so at least you're getting it out,
Right.
neutralizing
Yes.
it,
And I think I
right?
forget that too. Yeah. But it is kind of something I am saying daily. Like, you know, because there's so much I
Right.
want to do and I only have so
Right.
much time.
Well, so since you're on here and since we're talking, let's just like finish like this because now I can like talk to you about this. But this
Sure.
is okay. So the other thing, so I was like, oh, this is really interesting for those of you that had like, I want people, when I say, okay, who would I be? I want it to be like aligned action steps. But for you, I kind of knew it was going to be more on the emotional side because that's usually you've got the aligned action steps on point, right? And so then
Okay.
the question becomes, what I find really interesting, and I'm curious how you perceive this, is that prioritizing those things that you're saying that you have more time, like would love more time for, actually gives back to you in such a way that you have more capacity for all the other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like this is, and it always blows people's mind, especially people that come into my world that are really busy. Like they're like super busy, they don't have time for anything. And I'm like, but you
Hmm.
desire time freedom, but you've created this business that hasn't given you any time freedom, right? And that's fine. But
Yeah.
why do you want time freedom, right? And they'll be like, oh, XYZ. And I'm like, well, that's what you need to prioritize, because the more that you feel that way, the more space you're
Yeah.
going to create for yourself. And so for you, I know
Yeah.
community is such a big thing that it's going to give back to you in such a way that you might end up with more capacity, not less.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that makes
I don't
sense.
know
Totally.
if that's true for you. Everybody's different, but in my experience of people that are very like, if you were a person that wasn't taking action, I would have something different to say. I wouldn't be like,
Right.
oh, if you're not taking action, that's okay. Just not take action and feel happy. Like, no, that's not what I would be saying. But because I know that you consistently take action in your business, and I know how well your business has done, I know like that
Hmm.
the scale that it can go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that like then let's try bringing that into it. It's like, okay, can I prioritize,
Hmm.
even if it's just one of those things on the list? And I would pick
For
the
sure.
one that's going to give you more energy back. Like when I connect with others, like when I connect with my community, I feel like what
Right.
like gives you energy, right? And
Hmm.
I did a training a while back over that. I'll see if I can find it, but it's super powerful about bringing in what works for you because it energizes you. We need to be very mindful about what energizes us and what takes away energy from us. And if
Right.
our business is one of those things that takes a lot of energy from us, that's why everybody feels stuck. There's no way
Hmm.
that you cannot feel stuck if you consistently feel like your business, I'm not saying that yours does, but I know a lot of people that
No.
are like, I'm doing all the things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, do you feel exhausted? And like, yes. And I'm like, well, is time freedom very high for you? And like, yes. And I'm like, well, that's probably why, because your brain is freaking out thinking, I'm going to lose my freedom and my time if I continue on this path.
Right. Right.
And so they'll show up, but they'll show up like in a way that isn't as magnetic because they're like
Hmm.
unconsciously sabotaging. Because they're like, well, I'm showing up, check the box, but I'm not really showing up because I don't really want more
Hmm.
clients. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like I'm committed to Instagram day in, day out, but it doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily
you're
mean I'm showing up my best self.
right. And
For
guys, and
sure.
listen. That's another thing that this is super, super, super important. You never have to be your best self all the fucking time. None of us
Right,
are
right.
like, I like, don't, like if you have space and capacity for it, but also just being honest, like not so much you because you don't really have like a lifestyle brand. I feel like I'm more on the lifestyle brand of like people buy from me because of my lifestyle and who I am as a person. And so for me, even being honest about that, I don't have capacity for this, or I don't want to sell this way, or I don't want to do high ticket one to ones. People actually buy from me more because of that. It's a little bit different for your business model, but there's been times where like in Bridget's world, I was in one of her masterminds and she had said, she always says like I'm living or I'm having the time of my life. And she's like, guys, you know how many times I type that, but I'm in bed typing that and I like with cramps and I'm not feeling great. But like overall, I am having the time of my life.
Hmm.
Over
Hmm.
and it's the same thing with manifestation. It's like, guys, one of my best trainings, which I probably need to bring this back, is like, how do you manifest when you feel like shit? Well, you manifest when you feel like shit because we're all humans and we're all going to feel shitty, but you still feel good about the thing you want. You're still in alignment and feel good about the thing, even if you do have cramps or you didn't sleep last night or you're mad at your husband or whatever. Like, we are not perfect humans. So, a lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm thinking negatively. I'm going to attract negatively. I'm like, you're a human. You're always going to have negative thoughts. Like, that's a part of it. But as long as you feel good about what you're creating, like, do you even
Hmm.
see that? You can feel the difference of like how I talk about that, of like, because I can think about
Hmm.
like, oh, like, you know, XYZ is wrong. This isn't working. And it's like, oh, like come over here and be like, or I don't feel good and I'm shit, like whatever. And it's like, oh
Hmm.
wait, like, can I come over here and be like, I feel shitty in this moment because guys, I didn't. I haven't been sleeping well, and that's okay. So my brain's a little funky right now, but like if I lean into what I desire and I'm like, oh, I really just like want to sell digital products. I want to have more time freedom. My energy immediately shifts versus me being like, nothing's working. I'm not showing up. I'm tired. La, la,
Yeah.
la. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
So you don't have to always show up as your best self. But when I told you to re-record those videos, it was more just to like play around with it. And
Yeah.
now that we
Yeah.
know the problem, it's probably not even the
Yes.
videos that are the problem. You
Yeah,
recorded those
exactly.
anyways.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
it's
Amazing.
true.
Okay. So to kind of close this out, so we're gonna tap. And so like, so what do you want to tap on? Like I am the person who like makes me a priority. That's what I'm hearing. I'm the
Mm,
person that makes me a
yeah,
priority.
yes,
Let me write this down. Makes
yeah.
me.
And I feel like the days aren't long enough, but I would like to sort of change that framework.
Yeah.
That the days
Tap
are
on
long
that.
enough. Yeah.
Tap on that. Like anytime that you have these beliefs that are really like, it's man, there probably should do a training on this. I've talked about it in the past about the concept of time and time being like
Mm,
more to me, time is more than money. We can always get more money, we can't get more time. So for me, I'm
right.
really weird about my time. And so I've thought about doing trainings over that because that's a good way to think about it, but also it can really like I also have the
Hmm.
story of like people wasting my time and it frustrates me. And so it can also be a negative thing. So when these like beliefs come up that you know aren't serving this version
Hmm.
of you, tap on
Hmm.
that, get rid of it. You don't need it, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm going to write down the days are long enough to get done, to get everything done I need to. Long enough to. Guys, if you're doing this at home, just write down like the things that like if you have like if you're deciding right like I decide that I'm being the person right now that has xyz, I would be the person that right and write down like four of them, tap on this, make sure you're installing this like and you'll even see like me and her both our bodies will change after we do this. You can just
Hmm.
tap to become that version of you, right? Okay, so makes me a priority, the days are long enough to get everything done. I would probably say done that needs to be done, but that's too long for tapping. But if you were writing it down, that's probably the way I'd say.
Sure.
You try to like keep tapping very short and sweet. Okay. You said joy a lot.
Hmm. And
Joy is a big
peace,
one for you. Yeah.
like to not worry, to just have that
So
peace.
what I would say, because daily is such a thing for you, like what if your mark of success was like, okay, I have joy and I have peace every day and I still make the money I want versus
Mm.
when I make the money I want, I have joy and peace.
Right. Right.
That's the reframe, right? Like a lot of
Hmm.
us, like we're all guilty of it. It's like when I'll feel this way when I have that, but
Hmm.
it's like feeling is the only thing we can actually
Hmm.
have control over. Like, can we just
Hmm.
like prioritize feeling that way? Again, I would have different
Yeah.
advice for somebody that just wasn't taking action at all. But like, you know what I mean? Like for you, I know that that's
Yes.
a thing for
Yes.
you. Okay.
You know what that
So
totally reminded me of and resonated with? When I had to
what?
surrender to motherhood because I had four kids. And by surrender, I mean with that joy and peace of giving up all the stuff you kind of have to give up when your whole day is just about kids and laundry and cleaning. But I was so thankful to be able to stay home with my kids and homeschool, etc. I had a lot of joy and peace about it, even though there were so many sacrifices. We weren't going on vacations with four kids, stuff like that,
Right. Right.
because I wasn't working. But I had so much joy and peace. So for some reason, that just came to my head when you were saying all that.
Yeah. And there's a reason why it came because that's your way. It's literally your brain and body is communicating with you.
I'm
Hey,
feeling
this is how you
emotional.
do it. Oh, well, good. Like be in your emotions. All emotions
Hmm.
are allowed here. That's beautiful.
So what does that mean? That I want to be back at that place again, I guess.
I think it's also saying that you're in control, that you have the power to do that. Like you have the
Right.
power to have the peace and the joy now, and also that it's
Hmm.
safe to prioritize it.
Right.
It's
Right.
safe to put it first, right? Because what I was kind of seeing is like, I really desire this because you've said this for months now, joy and peace, joy and peace, joy and peace. And it's like, okay, this is really important for you, but like, why are we not prioritizing that? Or maybe we are and we just don't get it in. Like, it's not, it's,
Well, it's
yeah.
probably because I'm taking too much action.
I mean, okay. Yes and
Um,
no.
yes and no.
Yeah, like I think there's always probably an optimal way to do things, right? Like I
For
don't think it's
sure.
like what's your action look like? I've asked this to you before, but like do you post
Yeah.
every single day, like Monday through Friday or 7 days a week? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, pretty much 6 days a week. I guess because I still have this, because making really great sales on Instagram is somewhat new still for me, because that was like a solid 3 months. And then now because the algorithm changed, things have gone down. But what's my point? I guess I do still have that angst of, am I doing this right? And even though it worked, I still didn't feel confident that I was doing it right. So that's probably where the angst is coming from, rather than just having the confidence and joy and knowing.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is if you want to tap out like what would you say? Like, is the story like I'm doing it wrong? Because I'm not really hearing that. I'm hearing like, am I doing it
I,
right? Like
I
maybe
think
it's
it's just
like,
kind of like doubts, wondering. Though then again, I guess I did feel, yeah. I mean, obviously I had that confidence of, okay, this is working, this is good.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And maybe you don't even have to assign a word to it as long as you have the
Yeah,
sensation of like,
true,
like the second
true.
guessing, right? And guys, second guessing is really normal. And notice if that's like a default for you of if people are always like,
Hmm.
if you tend to second guess, it causes a lot of friction and also a lot of energy. For those of you that want more capacity, second
Hmm.
guessing is taking a lot of your energy. This is really about
Yes,
how you, so if something like that is happening a lot, catch that. Be like, wait, can I just make the decision and choose that it's the right one? If I
right.
know that it's not working,
Hmm.
I can pivot then, but I don't need to worry about it right now.
Right. Yeah, no, that definitely, because yes, exactly. On the days that I was consistently getting sales, and of course it feels great, and then there's, more relaxation, more peace, and a confidence. But as soon as I had 4 days in a row with no sales, all of a sudden, all those
It's like,
doubts came.
yeah, like, oh my God, it's never going to work again. And I mean, this happens to everybody. It's working, it's not
Right.
working. It's the roller coaster. You have to learn to ride the wave, right? Like it's totally normal to
Yes.
feel that way and valid.
Yes.
I would be feeling the same way if you're getting consistent sales every day. But again, it's nothing to do with you. It's something's happening. Let's figure out what it is, right? Like versus,
Right.
well, maybe it was just a luck and I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, because just notice like the different action you would take from there. It must
Hmm.
be me. Oh,
Hmm.
now I feel down. Now I have less capacity. And then your brain's going
Yeah.
to be like, well, don't keep going then, because if this is going to take away your capacity and I really desire that, stop. This is how people self sabotage because they'll be like,
Yes.
oh, like I'm exhausted. This is taking so much from me. And then their brain's like, well, then put that over there. Don't even go there, right? And so it's like this has nothing to do with me. Oh, it's the algorithm. We can figure that out. That's no problem, right? Like, of course, it's a pain in the
Hmm.
ass, but like it's figure outable, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
So,
that resonates. Yeah.
yeah. So, okay. So, how much, like, would you say that, like, you said doubt, and what was the other thing that you said? I wrote it down, or maybe it was in your comments,
Sometimes
but like,
angst, like
yeah,
almost like a worry of, yeah, what am I doing something wrong? You know,
right.
like all of a
Would you
sudden,
say that's like the biggest thing that like holds you back from experiencing joy and peace like daily? Because I'm really hearing that is a
probably,
priority. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like can we just tap that out? And if you want, like because you're such a master at tapping, you can just do it. You can mute yourself and do it. But like I want you to see where you're at with that and then we can do the install together. But I
Sure.
feel like installation's a lot easier as like a group or doing it with other people versus tapping out because the tapping out part really needs your words, right? And so you
Okay.
can just mute
Sure.
yourself if you want. You don't have to
Okay.
do it like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me know like when you get it down to at least a two, but probably a zero.
So am I tapping about that angst feeling, that doubt feeling, right?
Yeah, the thing
Yeah.
that you feel, which I now that
Hmm.
hearing you talk is probably the thing, but the thing that really brings up you not being able to have peace and joy like every
Right.
single day because you're trying
Okay.
to get peace and joy no matter what happens. Because if something can
Yes.
take you out of that, like not making a sale, then
Hmm.
you're never in control. You're giving your power away.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And that's actually what we're doing next week. So
Okay.
Okay, amazing. All right, so now the point, and again, guys, this is the point of installation, but if you're used to the old way, you can actually install this way. I just like this way. Do what resonates with you. But normally I do that to get it out and then I just install. And so the things I have is like, and this is, guys, like you get to say what you want, but like, um, I'm the person that makes me a priority, that puts me first, that prioritizes, like, we're just going to say it in different ways, like that prioritizes joy and peace every day. Sorry, let me put this over here. I can't see it over there. Whose days are long enough to get everything done. That's going to be your homework, like to really focus on that story. Yeah. And that it is working. The days are long enough and that it is working. If you do that, things will change, especially if you were to just tap on this is working, things will change. You'll be like,
Mm.
oh, maybe this is the problem, or oh, actually, this is a creative solution, or oh, I can hire somebody to repurpose this and it's not being shared. And like, there's creative solutions to the problem. And when we tap on it's working and we actually believe it, there'll be a creative solution that presents itself, right? I'm the person that experiences joy and peace every day. I'm doing it right. So that's what we're just going to tap on. All right, we're ready? Here we go. And if you need to mute me, mute me. Okay, so I am the person who makes me a priority. I am the person who prioritizes peace and joy. I experience peace and joy daily, no matter how many cells I make, because peace and joy are my birthright. And I know that through peace and joy, I actually have more space and more capacity for sales, for my business, and to keep going. I'm the person who has enough time in the day to get everything done that I need. There's more than enough time in the day when I prioritize myself, when I give myself peace and joy and allow myself to go slower. I experience peace and joy daily. I feel like that might have done it. I already yawned, and that's not even my story. Did that do it?
Yeah, it felt good. I did a big sigh. I was just, the whole
Okay,
thing
yeah,
feels
the
really good.
physiological, yeah. Like, so again, like I know that you guys know this, but I always like to like say it, like when you have a physiological response, you'll sigh, you'll yawn, you'll cry, you'll
Mhm.
sneeze. I have a client that giggles, like but you'll feel it. Your body will do something. That's how you know it's done, right? And so what? That
Mhm.
took no time, guys. Like literally, she tapped for 2 minutes, we talked for a minute, and then it was like we're talking like 3 minutes of work here that she could do every single day, and by next week she'll be different. But if she just wanted to tap on the idea that like it's working, it would literally take less than a minute.
Okay,
So you can do
awesome.
that before you post. Like this is
Yeah.
working. Everything I do is working. Everything I put out like resonates with people. And a creative solution will come along where it will work. Something will happen. It always does. So let me know how this goes. I hope this was helpful. And yeah, next week we're going to do
Mhm.
something about self-sabotage, or not self-sabotage. I don't know why I said that. About giving our power away. Yeah. Which is such
Okay,
a
great.
powerful one. Like, yeah. So I love how it got brought up in this one. Okay. Have a great rest of your day, and I
Thanks,
will talk to
Fern.
you soon. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.